Hello, everybody, and welcome to Classic Country Backstories. I'm Colleen Gallagher. There have been so many great country singers that have come and gone, but few were as talented as this guy. He was one of the most underrated talents who I believe never got the airplay and fame that he deserved. However, he earned the love and respect of his peers and many of the legends that came before him. He left this world way too soon, but he will never be forgotten by true country music fans. Today, we're going to talk about Daryle Singletary. As part of my research for this episode, I was fortunate to have the opportunities to talk with Daryle's bass guitarist, Frye, and Daryle's brother, Kevin Singletary. I will include some of my interviews throughout this episode, so stay tuned to hear about the life and incredible career of Daryle Singletary. It's going to be a good one, folks. Nashville, Tennessee, country music capital of the world, home of the Grand Ole Opry, where singers and dreamers come seeking stardom. Join me as we learn about the lives and careers of those who built this town on Classic Country Backstories. Since Daryle Singletary's passing, the Nashville community comes together for an evening in tribute. The show is called Daryle Singletary Keepin' It Country Jam. The event is held yearly in February at the Nashville Palace. I caught up with Daryle's brother, Kevin Singletary, as he was preparing to make the trip from Georgia to Nashville for the star-studded event. Welcome to the show, Kevin. It is so nice to see you today.
Hey, Miss Colleen, how are you? It's nice to be here.
Well, it's going great. I want to thank you for being with me today. I know you're getting ready for a big trip to Nashville for the annual Daryle Singletary Keeping It Country Jam, which will be held on February the 11th at the Nashville Palace.
That's correct.
I hear it is sold out. Is it?
Yes, ma'am. I just saw that today that the show is sold out, which is really good. Excited for that part of it as well.
Oh, sure. I was so excited to see that for you guys. It sounds like there's going to be another all-star lineup this year with Jamie Johnson and Ricochet and Red Akins and a whole bunch of others. So it's going to be another fabulous show.
Yes, ma'am.
I've always heard that they're just amazing shows. And one of these days, hopefully when we're not working, we can get down there and be there for one of them.
Right. I feel like you would enjoy it if you could come.
Oh, I'm sure I would. So what does this annual tribute to your brother Daryle mean to you and your family?
Like I said, as far as other artists coming and showing their support for our family, it shows that we can keep his memory and his legacy alive. And to see his kids perform at the end, it just does the heart good to see that and continue that year after year. I think this is number 7. So
that is amazing.
Exciting. Yeah,
that's amazing, and it's good for his kids. I'm sure
that's right.
That lifts them up as well. And Holly, it's just great that it is such a big event every year.
That's right.
Actually, your parents, they had a gospel band, did they not?
They did. It was compiled or consisted of, however you want to say it. My dad, my mom, 2 uncles and an aunt. And then there was another couple that was a family friend. And then throughout the years, they've had, drummers that were friends, guitar players that were friends. But the core group was those plus that other couple. And I'm not sure how many years, but they spent many years on the road, kind of where we got started, I guess you could say. Kind of made to get up there and sing, and then it was just a passion from there, which we've got it on both sides. My dad's parents, they're very active in a band and sang, and then on my mom's side, the same. My granddaddy was the same way. So we've got it from all areas.
So now, does your mom and dad still sing at all?
They do. They attend the local church right across the road. My dad has been leading singing there ever since my granddad stepped down. It's a family church. Not per se that we own it, but it's a family church
Yeah.
that most
Yeah.
of all of our family goes there. And he, like I say, he's been leading ever since Granddaddy stepped down, and I'll be 52 this year, so at least 45, 50 years.
I also read that Daryle sang gospel music with you and your cousins.
He did. Like I said, with mom and dad on the road near about every weekend. That was something that was just part of our life.
Sure.
There was a portion in the set, so to speak, when it was our time to get up and do our thing. We would get up, and it was normally 3 songs. We did the same 3 to kind of get the crowd involved, to kind of get them like, oh, look at these little kids singing. So, I guess you would call it a laughter hour. And that's kind of where we got our start. From there, it just grew.
Yeah.
You know, growing up in the small town that we grew up in, there wasn't really a lot to get into. We've got 1 traffic light. We now have a Dollar General and 2 gas
Yes.
stations. So it's a small town. So we had to be creative. And you know, growing up, we sang. We had on the front porch, we had a make believe sale barn. We had church. Daryle would be the preacher, and then me and my cousin would sing, and then we'd flip flop the next day and do something different, you know. So we were always coming up with something to pacify ourselves and our parents to stay out of their hair.
But that's awesome. So do you still sing?
I don't sing as much. When we get together, it's always a sing. Somebody's going, when we have a birthday,
Yeah.
we're going to sing happy birthday, and we've got all 4 parts, and there's probably, I'd say there's somewhere around 30 of us, and for us to all break off into our parts, and it is just amazing. For my 50th, we did a party uptown, and folks recorded it, and then it just, I'm proud of it because it was my 50th, and then it's something that I can say, hey, this is what we did at my party, and it's really amazing.
Well, I heard through our mutual friend Phil Frye that you were a pretty darn good singer.
Well, I'll have to get on Phil about that.
Well,
No, I can tote my own. I do. I always said Daryle was the one that was his passion, that was his life, and it showed.
Oh yeah.
Uh, Coming up through school, we were both taught in the same course class, but he knew that was his skill, and he honed it very, very well.
Yeah.
Maybe from 10 to teenage years,
Yeah.
he knew that was what he wanted to do. And there again, going back to the porch, he would have his little audience of me and my cousin, and then he swore up and down there was 50,000 other people out there, but it was just us 2. And he would perform. I mean, he would put on a show. So to say what age, I don't know what age, but and 2, he was not too keen on physical labor. We had summer jobs, which was breaking okra and baling hay. So when we got to the okra patch, somehow his stomach started hurting. Well, Granddaddy would let him drive the truck back to the house, which was 50 yards from where we were at. Me and Nanny would get out there, and we'd start breaking okra, and Granddaddy, he'd be grading it. Well, about time we finished, Daryle would show back up, and Granddaddy, you need some help. And I'm like, well, he's done now. So we don't need your help now. We need your help breaking it. So as far as physical labor, he didn't want no part of that. So, he knew he had to sing.
Daryle Bruce Singletary was born March 10th, 1971 in Cairo, Georgia. His father was Roger, and he was a postal worker. His mother, Anita, was a hairstylist. He won his first talent contest when he was in the 5th grade. By the time he was a freshman in high school, he had his own band. While in high school, he was involved in the school's music program as well. After graduation, Daryle worked at a tractor dealership and sang in a band in Camilla, Georgia, before relocating to Nashville in October of 1990. Daryle Singletary was unapologetically country. At a time when country music was beginning to find many changes, he remained true to his country roots. He frequented open mic venues around Nashville, and he entered a talent contest at the Broken Spoke, a Nashville music venue. The winning prize was $100. He won 10 weeks in a row. He found a job doing demos. He sang on a demo called Old Pair of Shoes. Daryle's roommate at the time was working for Randy Travis and took the demo to him. Travis recorded the song and suggested Singletary to his management team. For a few months, Singletary continued working on demos and worked at Travis's office, answering phones as well as selling merch on the road for Randy.
So he moved to Nashville in 90.
He did.
And he worked as a demo singer. I know that. I also read that he worked as a roadie for Tanya Tucker for a short
He
time.
did. I was trying to think. I always get my dates wrong. Back when I graduated, it was the end of May, 1st of June, and 1990. He graduated, and it was very shortly thereafter. Tanya was at the Georgia State Fair in Perry, and we had a family friend that drove her bus, and that was kind of his in. He said, yeah, bring him on and we'll go from there. So we took him up there to the fair, dropped him off, and I won't say he didn't look back, because there were several times that he'd called Daddy and Daddy, I want to come home, and Daddy'd tell him, son, you got to stick it out. You gotta keep pressing on, and he'd get those times to where he could come home, and he cherished those, but he knew that's where he needed to be. And then from there, that guy, he went to work with Randy Travis, driving a bus. So then I say Daryle kind of followed. He kind of, stayed in good with him, stayed in tight with him, knew what he wanted to do, and started kind of pitching those demos and letting Randy and Lib know what he could do. And he, I guess, made him like a honorary band member, so to speak. So when they'd go out on shows, every now and then he'd let him do a song, and it grew from there.
Wow.
So.
It took off pretty quick. I know he moved down in 90, and I believe he got his deal in 95. And 5 years seems like 100 when you're trying to get somewhere. And they always say it's a 10-year town.
Right.
So even to get somewhere in 5 years, it's just amazing. It doesn't happen very often.
It don't.
Then he signed to Giant Records, where he released his first album in 1995, which was self-titled. The album was produced by David Malloy, James Stroud, and Randy Travis. His first single, I'm Living Up to Her Low Expectations, was written by Bob McDill. This song made it into the top 40 of the Billboard singles charts. Then from the LP came the smash hits Too Much Fun, which climbed to number 4, and I Let Her Lie, which made it to the number 2 position. On this album, Singletary also paid tribute to Keith Whitley, covering Would These Arms Be in Your Way with Rhonda Vincent on background vocals. This was the beginning of a musical relationship that continued for the remainder of Daryle's career.
So as his brother, can you tell me what it was like for your family when he started climbing the charts and getting national attention?
To be honest, like I said earlier, we're from a small town. You go to the gas station, you go to the Dollar General, and of course, you start to get a little more recognized, and not really the finger pointing of, that I'll like I said, I'll be 52 this year, and I will always be Daryle's little brother. We went
Yeah.
to the tribute just a couple of years ago, and ran into a friend, and she introduced me to somebody, and she said, "This is Daryl's this is Kevin." So it's still sticking to this day. But it's I would say it's probably just like anybody else. There is a little bit of that, and even now that he's passed, those younger people that are introduced to traditional country music,
Yeah.
and are introduced to him, it's kind of, oh yeah, that's your brother type thing, and I'm fine with that, and it's sometimes it's good, and you can say, hey, I'm Daryl's little brother, and you can kind of get those perks, and then sometimes it's just, hey, yeah, I'm Daryl's brother, and going about your business. And he'd always tell us, you can drop my name, but don't think you're going to get a whole lot for it.
Well, now he always seemed like the kind of guy. I take it he didn't change much as far as who he was.
He was, we were raised very family oriented.
Yeah.
And he was always, the same way.
Right. But I mean, he also, like, he still enjoyed things like hunting and working on the farm, didn't he?
Oh,
and spending time
absolutely.
with family.
Absolutely.
I could always tell he was really big into the hunting, and all that stuff.
Yes.
But, there were, even during times when he didn't have a record contract, he was out there. He was beating the road, and,
Right.
watch his schedule. And like so many of the people of that time, that some of them that are still doing it, like your Mark Oils, people like that,
right.
It's been around for a long time. And during that period when he was first coming up. But I mean, even when he didn't have a record deal and he wasn't getting the radio airplay that he should have gotten,
right.
He was still constantly working and providing his for his family. And I think that's an amazing thing. It's hard, to keep that up when you don't have those perks of the record deals.
Exactly. And that goes back to, what I said a while ago. He knew what he wanted, and he knew he had to hustle, grind, whatever you want to call it, to get to that point. And not having the perks of a record deal. I say perks. Sometimes it could be a curse as well.
Well, yeah.
But he knew what he wanted, and he went out there and got it, and he did. He provided a good living, and then, when it was playtime, it was playtime.
Yeah.
and he could go hunting, and he could, work at the house. Well, I use that loosely. He could be around the house. He loved to ask me and my cousin to come help him, and it always wound up, he was on the phone, and he was, yeah, doing this and that and the other, and we were always doing the work.
That's great. Well, like I said, he had the ingenuity to get it done, didn't
That
he?
he did.
Daryl followed up with his next LP in 1996 titled All Because of You. From this album came Amen Kinda Love. The song was Singletary's second number 2. After the music boom period of 1990 through 1996, record sales drastically reduced. Giant was suffering, and the West Coast corporate powers turned James Stroud loose and replaced him with Doug Johnson to head up the label. Daryl was vulnerable as the other artists on the label, but Johnson made it a point to know his artists and could see how Daryl affected his audience. Charming traditional country fans was definitely his forte. Giant released Daryle Singletary's third album in early 1998 called Ain't It the Truth. Daryl was married to Carrie Harvick, a budding singer-songwriter. She sang background harmonies on this album. The Note was the highlight of this album. The song had been previously recorded by Conway Twitty, Gene Watson, Tammy Wynette, and others, but never released as a single. Daryle was one of the best voices in country music, and the song fit him perfectly. While it moved around the charts, it never moved to the top. It remained on the chart for 10 months, but lacking heavy airplay, the song could not generate substantial album sales. The song should have been a hit, however. Radio found it too slow and sad for programming. Doug Johnson reluctantly released Singletary from his record contract. However, the two remained close friends. Daryle focused on touring while searching for another record label. He signed with Audium Coke Records and released Now and Then in the year of 2000. He also released some of his older hits along with I've Thought of Everything, written by his wife, Carrie, and Trey Bruce. In March 2002, Daryle Singletary and Carrie Harvick divorced. That's Why I Sing This Way was released on Audium Records in 2002. This project was held in high regard by fellow country entertainers. Guest appearances were made by Dwight Yoakam, Merle Haggard, Johnny Paycheck, George Jones, and Rhonda Vincent for a series of duets on classic country tunes. A fantastic remake of the Conway Twitty song, I'd Love to Lay You Down, and a song written by Max D. Barnes, That's Why I Sing This Way, was on the album. Also was Old Violin with Johnny Paycheck. This was Paycheck's final recording. He passed away on February 19th, 2003. Daryle married Holly Mercer in August of 2003. They had 4 children together: Mercer, Jonah, Nora, and Charlotte.
Well, I know he was so well respected by so many legendary performers, such as George Jones, Randy Travis, Merle Haggard, and people, that were really, really loved him and loved his music. And they respected him for following his passion of not straying away from traditional country music.
Right.
So, I mean, do you think he realized how truly loved he was and what an impact he had on traditional country music as a whole, even now?
If I'm truly honest, I know that he loved what he did. That like you said, that was his passion. That is what he wanted to do. And I guess it always happens. After 7 years later, to still hear people say what an impact he had, or he's one of the best, or his voice is just phenomenal. All those things that you really want to hear, it makes it worth it. And I honestly, I would say that he probably felt like he was doing his part. But for us, we're back here in Wiggum, where, the town's got 1,800 people, and he's, all across the United States doing his job. It's you probably don't really see what you did or could have done, whatever. But now we see, after, like I said, 7 years later, we hear, that dude was awesome. That dude, the great accolades. And I think the first, or maybe the second one, tribute, we're sitting around as a family, and that's what my dad says is, I really wish that he could hear this and feel this from all these people. So it is quite amazing.
After Audium Coke Records closed its Nashville division, Daryle released his next album called Straight from the Heart on Shaughnessy Records in 2007. The album also included mostly cover songs and duets, including Black Sheep with John Anderson, I've Got a Tiger by the Tail with Ricky Skaggs, and We're Gonna Hold On with Rhonda Vincent. Rockin' in the Country was released on E1 Records, formerly Coke Records, in 2009. The first single from this album was Love You with the Lights On. The relationship with E1 was short-lived.
Today, we have someone who's very special on the show. He currently plays bass guitar for Ashton Shepherd. But for several years, he was on the road with country music traditionalist Daryle Singletary. We're going to talk about Daryle and his career, and we're going to talk about our favorite subject, country music. So please welcome to Classic Country Backstories, Mr. Phil Frye.
Hey,
Hello,
hello,
Phil.
everybody. How are you? And thank
Oh,
you, Colleen, for having me on. I really appreciate you so much.
well, I am so grateful you could do this with us. It's a real honor to have you on the show today, and we're excited about getting to talk to you a little bit about Daryle Singletary. So
Oh,
I know you were with him several years. How long were you actually playing with him?
I was with Daryle just a little over a decade, safe to say the last 10 years of his life.
Oh wow! And how did you come to play with him?
Well, I have a very good friend who plays on Daryl's records, and actually his name is Kevin Grant. And
Oh
Kevin
yes,
is a bass player in Nashville. He's a session guy now.
yeah.
It is probably easier to name the albums he didn't play on. All that Daryle Worley stuff is Kevin. He's been on the Craig Morgan stuff, Garth Brooks albums. The list goes on and on. And Kevin, who, like I say, a very good friend, and he turned Singletary needed a bass player, so he turned Singletary on to me.
So now, where was Daryle in his career at the time you came on board with him?
Just getting ready to drop that Rockin' in the Country CD was coming out.
Oh,
And so that was a neat time to be involved. And so I came in with that. And I think Charlie Daniels was the guest musician on that record. And it was, I think, the Rockin' on the Country, all that fiddle and stuff you hear, I think that's Charlie. Yeah, and he's all the background vocals. So really cool album. And we hit
yes.
it out after that. And it was just kind of nonstop from that point forward. So
I know you had a lot of great shows and opportunities. You went a lot of different places with Daryle. Was there any particular like standout show or something that was really special to you?
Probably one of the biggest and most outstanding things that stand out was we did a show in Japan, in Kumamoto, Japan. And I had no idea how prominent real country music is in Japan.
It's funny you bring the Japan shows up because I know I love to watch YouTube, and that's a great place to go back and find old country music. We saw some footage of you all over there in Japan,
Oh, wow.
and at one of the big show. It was a big show, and down in the front, the Japanese folks were line dancing.
Yes. And we ended up with, I think they estimated that crowd at about 70,000 people.
Oh
And
my gosh!
they knew they knew the dances. And what really blew my mind the most, we got to meet some of the people after the show. And when they would come up and you'd mention a song, or they'd mention a song and say, "Oh, I'm glad you like that song. I'm so glad you brought that up." And then they would say, "Oh yeah, that was written by." They knew the liner notes of the CD, and they were telling me things. That was a fantastic show.
For the next 6 years, Daryle continued to tour extensively and perform on the Grand Ole Opry, but he did not have a record label. Even during periods of time when Singletary was not releasing material, he continued to have a large and loyal fan base that kept him performing.
Thank you, but I wanted to share with you a story and where we actually met Phil
Okay.
back in I think it was 2014. We worked with Daryle. Actually, my husband, I'm a bass player and singer, and he's a drummer. And we have a band here in Missouri. We also
Mm-hmm.
play down there for Max T. Barnes. He's a songwriter in
Right.
Nashville. But we did a show, and they hired Daryle to come through. It was just a pass-through gig. It was a club gig.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I mean, I love Daryle, but my husband, I don't think there's a bigger fan on this earth. I really don't think that, I mean, he would hear him and he'd tear up.
Really?
When he was alive, he would tear up.
Yeah.
It's like, there's just nothing better than that. Well, when we got the chance to open for him, and we were so excited about that. Jim had opened for him a couple other times in other
Mm-hmm.
bands, but this was kind of a more intimate type situation. So, and it was a club. Like I said, we came in and we did our opening act, and Vic Lawson, who was his steel player at the time, had played on a project of ours. So we asked him to sit in and play with us for a little bit. And the club owner, we did our opening, and Daryle came in, and blew us out of the water. I mean, it was just like, oh gosh,
Right.
people were going crazy, and he did his show, and he got down. Well, the club owner comes back, and they're typically worried about keeping the place full to one on
Uh-huh.
one. So he's wanting us to go back up there. And I'm thinking, oh God, how do you follow this?
Right.
But we did. We went back up, and the guys in the band were a couple of them run back in, and Vic came back in and played with us. Well, then after probably 10 minutes, here comes Daryle. He comes back in, and we're playing, and he does this, looks at us and said, "Can I get up and sing with you?" And I look back at my husband. I thought he's gonna pass out. I'm not kidding. And so we're like, "Sure, come on up." So we were playing, and I was backing him as a bass player. He didn't get his guys back up.
Right.
So I was playing, and there was some song somebody had asked for. It was like an album cut or something that I wasn't familiar with. And Daryle said, "Give me that bass, I'll take it." So I gave him my guitar. Well, he did a couple of those songs. And then he turned to me and he said, "Do you know After the Fire's Gone?" I said, "I do. I'm a huge Loretta and Conway fan,
Uh-huh.
And so he's like, "Let's do that one." So I got to sing with him. And I thought it was just great. I mean, he stayed up
Right.
there with us probably an hour
Yeah.
of our time. And we got done, and they've still hung around. And now, mind you, this was the last job before they were coming home for his little Charlotte being born. That's what that was their last gig on the road, and they were going back to Nashville.
Okay.
And he was proud. He was telling it, he was telling us about he had her coming, baby's coming,
Uh-huh.
and he had to get home, and all this stuff. But we got on the bus with him. We had pictures taken. He was, we do hardcore traditional country, and that's all we
Right.
do. And he's like, "I just love getting to do something like that. It doesn't happen real often. You get to
Right.
play with somebody else." So, and then even a couple days later, he sent my husband an Instagram message telling him, he said, "It's just so great to play with other people that love and appreciate true traditional country music like he does." So I mean, it was truly an honor and an experience to get to spend the evening with him.
That's
And
great.
he was one of the most super human beings. And I couldn't get over live. I mean, as musicians do, we're kind of tough. If you played for a long time, you have a tendency to be kind of tough on other entertainers.
Right.
And it couldn't have gotten any better. I mean,
Right.
and I've seen a lot of stuff in my life, but he was just fabulous, and he was
Right.
nice. And we feel so blessed that we got that opportunity, to work with him and meet him and talk to him. And, and it was a great night for us.
Finally, in 2015, Daryle Singletary returned to the studio and released There's Still a Little Country Left. This album is a superb collection of tunes. Among these are Get Out of My Country, Sunday Morning Kind of Town, and Spilled Whiskey. In the summer of 2017, Daryle and Rhonda Vincent teamed up to release American Grandstand, an album of duets. Songs recorded were After the Fire Is Gone, We Must Have Been Out of Our Minds, Golden Ring, A Picture of Me Without You, and many other great songs.
Well, he was the epitome of traditional country music, and he sang with his heart and his soul, and he was an inspiration for so many country singers that came after him. And when Daryle wasn't with us, anymore, it was just really sad. I love the song "Who's Gonna Fill Their Shoes." It was written by
Right.
Max D. Barnes, which was one of the guys I worked for.
Right.
But when I heard that song, I always thought of Daryle because he was the one that's going to fill their shoes. There's not many of them out there
Right.
that hold true to that tradition. So I thank God for us, getting the opportunity, like I said, to be with him, and to listen to him. And I feel like he's also a vision of country music in the future to some people.
Right.
Some of the people that are kind of trying to stay in that traditional vein.
Yeah.
We still hear his name all the time. Like I said, we thank God, for recorded music and video that,
That's
that we
right.
still have his music, and for, things like this tribute. I mean, I think that the Keeping It Country Jam is just such a wonderful thing.
I do
And,
too.
through multimedia, we're never going to be without his music, and I'm
No,
so grateful. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Any other stories or anything you want to tell about him? Or
no. I had, I think one of the questions asked about interesting stories, funny stories, and I kind of thought, of course, there's a bunch of them,
yeah,
but just one that stands out. The cousin I was talking about earlier, he sang professionally. He started with the Dixie Melody Boys and then went over to Brian Free and Assurance. So he's
oh
sang
wow,
professionally for a long time. Well, when he come off of the road, he became a Georgia State Trooper. Well,
oh yeah,
of course, Daryle is if he wasn't singing, he would probably be in law enforcement. He was just a guru. He had a buddy in the funeral business, and
uh-huh.
he would go witness funeral business, and so he called my cousin one night, and he said, "Hey man, we're coming through your area." He said, "I want to play a prank," and he was like, "Heck yeah, I'm all over it." So he said, I want you to pull us over. I want you to get the driver off, tell him, that you got to search the bus, got to do all these things or whatever." Well, they come through town, they light him up. He's like, "Hey, Daryle, we're getting pulled over. Daryle, we're getting pulled over." So he was like, "Well, pull over." So he pulled over. He got him off the bus. I think they felled him down, put him in handcuffs, and then they started getting everybody off the bus. Well, Daryle was the first one to hit the ground, and he's just dying laughing. And he's like, "Man, you got me again." So he's out there sweating bullets, and Daryle gets off laughing at him. So, but he was a big prankster, and he'd love to get you or hang you.
Yeah.
We'd go somewhere, and he'd put his cell phone up to his ear and say, "Hey," and somebody turn around and wave, whatever, and he'd wave them over, and he'd have them right face to face, and then just turn around and walk off. And I'm like, "Dude," and I'm dying because I can't hold it. And then you put the three of us together, and it's dangerous because you're gonna hurt your gut laughing so hard. It's fun. But
Oh, that
but
is
yeah,
awesome.
we had some good times growing up, and thankful for all of them.
On Friday, February the 9th, 2018, Daryle and his band performed at the Rodeo Club in Dadeville, Alabama. He appeared to be in good spirits and he put on an amazing show. The following night, Saturday, February 10th, Daryle and his band played at Cowboys Nightclub in Lafayette, Louisiana. His final song was Johnny Paycheck's Old Violin.
I'll never forget that. That's we had came back out of Scott, Louisiana. It was where the last show we played. I will tell you this. Probably nobody knows this. So I will give you some information that I probably never really shared. So I'll share this with you.
Well, I appreciate
But
that.
Daryle, he always ended Too Much Fun. Great song.
Mhm.
And oddly enough, on this trip out, I had came back up on the bus and his knee was hurting him very bad. And he said, "Frye," he said, "will you put that knee brace on my knee?" And I said, "Yeah, bud." He said, "Every time I sit down and do it, my pants leg rises up and it looks funny." I said, "Okay, I'll take care of that." So he stood up and I put that brace on. And then he said, "Hey, tell him I'm ending with Old Violin." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, I think it'd be a good one to lead with." I said, "Okay. You sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure." I said, "Got you." So
Wow.
I came inside and I told us that he's going to end with Old Violin. Change it up. So we went out, we played, and end of the night, we done Old Violin, and turned out to be the last song he ever sang.
Wow.
And when you hear the last line of that song, but we came home, got off the bus about Sunday, about 2 o'clock, and I gathered my stuff. I still asleep. I see the bunk. I rolled out of the bunk, got my stuff, and he was coming back around the lot in his truck, and he hollered out. He said, We were leaving the following week for a three night run. We were leaving on Wednesday night, and he drove by and he threw his hand out. He said, "See you Wednesday, Frye." And I always called him Boss Man. I was, "Okay, Boss Man." I went over, got in the car and came home, and that was on Sunday. And then Monday at about 6 a.m., I got a phone call. I thought, who's calling me at 6 o'clock in the morning? Yeah. And that's when Daryle had passed. And that's how I found that. That was a rough day.
Daryle returned home to his family on Sunday, February 11th. Wife Holly found Daryle unconscious around 4:30 a.m. and dialed 911. Daryle Singletary died at his home in Lebanon, Tennessee, in his sleep in the early morning hours of Monday, February 12, 2018, of an apparent blood clot. He was only 46 years old. He was survived by his wife, Holly, twin boys, Mercer and Jonah, who were 7 at the time, Nora, 5, and Charlotte, 3, along with Daryle's parents, brother Kevin, and his in-laws. Condolences and tributes rang out from fellow entertainers who loved and respected Daryle Singletary. Randy Travis said, "I love Daryle Singletary's heart and soul for life, for others, and for true country music. Co-producing his first LP was a highlight in my career. He is one of the best and made me a better artist. My love and prayers are sent to Holly and the family. Thanks for the memories, brother." Rhonda Vincent said, "Daryle Singletary, one of the single greatest singers who ever sang a song. I loved singing with him. We shared a kindred spirit on and off stage. I will miss you dearly. Rest in peace, my friend." Darryl Worley said, "I am silenced by the news of Daryl's passing. He was my friend and brother in Christ. I loved him for exactly who he was. He was undoubtedly the best friend a real country song could ever have. And honestly, I don't know if our industry can stand to lose him at this time. He was the keeper of the lost tradition, and we all loved him for it." Jeannie Seeley said, "I am shocked and saddened to hear of the sudden passing of an amazing family man, vocalist, and friend. Daryle was one of the best voices ever to grace country music. He was the only person besides Johnny Paycheck who could properly sing old violin with the necessary emotion and talent." A memorial service was held on February 18th, 2018 at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville. Daryle brought traditional country music to a new generation. His voice was superb, and his spirit continues to live on through his music. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Classic Country Backstories. Please remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share our channel with your friends. Until next time, God bless, take care, and I'll see you later.